So hello everyone. Uh, yeah, Hi everyone. So we'll be continuing today's session with another topic, which is constructors in Java, right? So before we start, I'll first of all explain what constructor is, when do we use it, how do we use it, and we'll go for a few questions. Not questions actually. We'll write a program involving constructors, right? So that you guys get a clear understanding. So I'll start sharing my screen, and then we'll start off with the understanding of what constructors are. Let me open a whiteboard. Okay, so I hope the whiteboard is visible to everyone. Hi guys, we are starting off with constructors. Yeah. Hi everyone. Hi. Okay, is the whiteboard visible to you? Okay, we'll wait for a couple of minutes, couple of seconds. Let the whiteboard be visible. Meanwhile, let us discuss what constructors mean, right? Okay, so what can you figure out from the literal name of the constructors? When you think about it literally, let's say you don't have any knowledge about Java. Let's say you've never heard what a constructor is, and let's say I tell you that there's something called constructor. What can you figure from the word? What will be the best guess you can make regarding what the meaning could be? The whiteboard will probably be visible in some time. I don't know why it's taking a little time. But anyway, meanwhile, we can discuss what constructor is, right? Okay, so what my question was, let's say you have zero knowledge of Java. Let's say you never heard what a constructor is. But when tell you this word, when I tell you something about constructor, when I tell you that there's something called constructors, what can you figure from the word itself? What can you figure out about the meaning that could be? Literal meaning is what I'm talking about. Is there anything that's hitting your mind? Yeah, that this could be the meaning of constructor. Maybe this is what constructor means. To construct something. That's what I was expecting as an answer, right? Yeah, something we're going to build, correct. Right? So we'll see what exactly is the usage over here, but we'll discuss the meaning. So if we look at the literal meaning, it says that we'll be constructing something. So in Java, we'll not actually be constructing something, but when we talk about Java, constructor is used to initialize variables. You get the idea. What have we done in yesterday's class? Okay, before that, the whiteboard is visible, right? Okay, so what did we do yesterday? In yesterday's class, we had declared a class, let's say over here. Let me write a prototype class over here. Let's say this is the beginning of the class, right? We had a few variables over here, right? And then somewhere in a function, let's say in a main function, what did we do was we initialized those variables. Remember that? That's what we had done yesterday, right? Yeah. So that's what we had done. But let's say there's a way in which you can initialize the variable with some value or the value of your choice immediately while creating an object. Won't that be better? Because as of now, what are we doing? We are creating an object first and then initializing it, right? We are creating an object first and then initializing it. So that's a two-step process. First step is creating an object. Second step is initializing the object, I mean the variables of the object with some value. But if there's a way in which you can do it all at once, I mean you create an object and the value is initialized right away, won't that be a lot better? Maximize the whiteboard. It is maximized. I mean, then it is taking up the entire screen actually. I don't think I can maximize it anymore. Uh, okay, wait, let me stop sharing the screen and start it again. I don't see any other option to do that. Chrome tab, whiteboard. Yeah, is it okay now? Great, great. Okay, let's continue with this, right? So what we were discussing is the usage of constructor. What is the use of constructor when we talk about constructors in Java? It is used to initialize the variables during the creation of objects, right? So we'll see in detail later on how exactly do we do that. But is it clear what is the use of constructors here? It's clear, right? Okay, so I think the best way to learn about constructors will be with the help of programs. And it's not completely theoretical. It's actually it will be better if we go write some code and then understand it, right? Okay, but before we do that, is everyone clear about what is the usage of constructors? Can I be very sure that everyone is clear about it? Yeah. So what I'll do now is I'll write a small code, right? A simple code where I'll use constructor, and then I'll explain you guys what exactly each of the part is and what are the things that we need to take care of over there, right? I hope that will make it clear to everyone. I'll start sharing link, IntelliJ screen. Hold on for a minute. Okay, so I hope IntelliJ is visible to you, right? So let's create a package. We'll name the package as constructor, right? Because there we are going to write the a small program where we will be using constructors. And let's create a new class inside of this and let's name it as constructor example, right? Okay. So everything else will, I mean, initial few lines of code will be same as what we had discussed yesterday. So what I'll be doing over here, I'll be declaring a few variables, right? Let's go a little step further than just printing out the values of variables. We'll try to add or do something like that. Let's say we have one variable called num1 and another variable called num2, right? And let's say I create another variable called sum. We can create it in same line, but anyway, we can create it in different lines as well. Now, what will we require over here is a main function, right? We will need a main function over here. So in there, what was our approach yesterday? We had created an object, right? So let me create an object, and you remember the syntax of creating an object. So let me write the syntax as well over here. The syntax will be class name is separated by object name is equal to new keyword, class name again, and then an empty bracket. So yesterday I did not tell you why is this empty bracket being used, but today you'll get to know, right? I didn't tell you because I didn't want to confuse you with different concepts at same time. So let's make it this way so that it's easier to read. Yeah. Okay, so we have a class name over here, constructor example, because we are trying to create an object of the class constructor example, right? And then we have the object name as well. Then we'll use a new keyword and then constructor example, right? So as of now, we have an object ready, fine. Now we can initialize the values this way. Let's say I go for initializing num1. Similarly, I go ahead and initialize num2 as well. And let's say for initializing the sum variable, what I am doing is uh, I am adding these two variables, right? So I hope this part is clear to everyone. Please do let me know if it is not clear, and I'll dry run it and tell you again. Is this clear? Is it clear, or shall I go ahead and explain you how is the whole initialization thing working? Clear, sir. Okay. Yeah. So what did we do over here? We created a class, right? Let me scroll up a little. So we created a class inside of which we have three variables, and as you can figure out, all of them are non-static. Now, if the variable is a non-static variable, we need an object, right? So we created an object, and with the help of object, we initialize those three variables. So num1 and num2 has been initialized with some value, some constant value, but the variable sum is dependent upon the value of num1 and num2, in the sense that we are adding them to get the value of sum, right? Yeah. Explain again. Okay, sure, no problem. Which part do you want me to explain again? Please specify that as well so that it becomes easier. Do you want me to explain the entire program again? Okay, hold on for a second. Let's let's go back to whiteboard. Yeah, so you guys can see your whiteboard, right? So see, what did we do over here? I'll write it in short. So let's say I have a class called constructor example. I'm writing it as CE, inside of which we have num1, num2, and sum. There are three variables, right? So what did I do? That next is I wrote a main function inside main function. I had created an object of constructor example, right? With the help of the object, what did I do? I went ahead and initialized the variables with some value. So this is what our program was, right? I hope you are taking notes as well. So main function and constructor example. Yeah. So what exactly goes on behind the scene? See, you create an object, right? So as we had discussed yesterday, when we create an object, what happens is our object's name is C. What happens is every variable or every function which is non-static becomes a part of the object, right? So a space will be allocated with the name num1 inside C, object C, right? Similarly, a space will be allocated for num2 as well. And then a space will be allocated for some variable as well. Let me know if this part is clear or not. Is this part clear? All of this initialization and everything, is it clear? Okay. So what will happen next? See, in this line, we are going for C dot num1 is equal to 10. So num1 variable inside C object will be initialized with 10. Similarly, num2 will be initialized with 20. What about sum variable? The sum variable is actually the sum of num1 and num2. So what will happen here? 10 and 20 will get added and will get stored here as sum, right? You got how it is done, right? Okay, great. I can see a few responses. Great that you guys could understand this. Any other questions that you have? No questions? If you have any, please ask. Otherwise, we'll proceed. Great. Okay, let's proceed then. So this part is clear. And what exactly were we discussing was constructors. Now, where does constructor come into picture over here? So if you can see, we have initialized these two variables, right? And we had initialized it separately over here, if you see, in the main function. Now, what if I create the object? I mean, I'll still have to write the code for initializing. It won't happen automatically. But what if I create the object and the creation of object triggers initialization as well? Won't that be great? Won't that be much better? You're getting it right? Yeah. So what my question was, if you can initialize the variables right when the object is created, it will be great, right? So how can we do that? That's what we have been talking about. We can do that with the help of a constructor. Now let's discuss a few things about constructors before we move to IDE, that is IntelliJ, and see an example of how it works. So, what about constructors? Constructors looks like functions, right? We had discussed functions yesterday, remember? So we discussed one function yesterday. So constructors looks like function. So they are similar to function. I'm saying similar and not same, right? And they both have different meaning. Being similar to something and being same as something are two different things. So constructors are similar to function, but obviously if they are similar, they are not same and they have differences, right? So if I tell you what is the syntax of a constructor, it will be something as follows. So the name of the constructor is going to be the same as the name of the class. So let's say I have a class whose name is test, right? And somewhere inside the class I am declaring a constructor, I'm creating a constructor. So what will be the name of the constructor? It will be the same as the name of the class. And I've already said that constructors are similar to function. Now if they are similar to function, it will have brackets as well, right? Then there will be a few lines of code over here, and that's all. So what you can see over here, which is uh, this section, this is what a constructor is. Sorry about that. I mean, it includes this opening braces as well. So this is what a constructor is actually, right? Is this clear? Yeah. So that thing inside the box you can see is a constructor, right? Now that's not the only way we can create constructor, but that's one way. We'll see the other way after we are done with this constructor, right? Now, if we talk about the types of constructors, constructors are of two types. So, okay, wait, constructors, right? They are of two types. One is known by the name of a default constructor. Sorry about the terrible handwriting. Let me erase that and write it again. And another one is called a parameterized constructor, right? So what did we discuss until now? We discussed what is the use of constructor, how can we, what is the syntax of a constructor, and what are the types of a constructor, right? So the one that we had discussed uh, a little while earlier was a default constructor. In default constructor, what do we do is we write the name, empty bracket, and a few lines of code inside the constructor. That's all. In case of parameterized constructor, the brackets are not empty. The brackets will contain some parameters similar to functions that we had seen. Functions with parameters, right? Is this clear? I hope everyone is able to understand this. Yeah. So constructors are used to initialize variables, right? Now initialization can be done in multiple ways, but one of the ways is constructor. And what is the difference between default constructor and parameterized constructor? The difference is default constructor does not take any arguments. They do not have any parameters, right? And what do we mean by parameters? In simpler terms, anything that we pass to the function, right, is a parameter. So since constructor is similar to function, they have similar syntax. There are minor differences which I'll tell you about in a while. But doesn't this look like a function? So in function we pass parameters or we don't pass parameters, right? Similarly in constructor we either pass parameters, in which case it is called as a parameterized constructor. Sorry. or we don't pass parameters, right? In which case it is called a default constructor, right? Default is zero argument constructor. That's correct. Absolutely correct. Yeah, default constructor, no argument is passed. Parameterized constructor, at least one argument is passed, right? Now, what is the use of passing an argument? Why would we want to pass an argument? See, let's say we have a few variables. Let's go back to IDE, right? Let's go back there and understand. Let's write a few lines of code. Yeah. So IntelliJ is visible, hopefully. Is the IDE visible? Okay, so let us say we want to keep these two values fixed. Anytime an object is created, let's say I want num1 to be 10 and num2 to be 20, no matter how many objects are created. If 100 objects are created, for each object, num1 will be 10 and num2 will be 20, right? Then what I'll do is I can keep the value fixed. But if I want the value to change according to the object, let's say I want to give the programmer, I want to give the user the flexibility to change the value of the object, value of the variables inside the object, then I'll have to give certain values. And the way to give certain value is to use a parameterized constructor, right? Now what I'll do now is I'll remove these two lines of code, line number 12 and 13. Let me comment that out better than removing it. Let's comment that out. Yeah. So I have removed the initialization section, right? And let me just print the value of sum. Okay, not sum actually. Constructor example dot sum, right? And if I run this code now, hold on a second, let me uncomment it for a while. If I run this code now, you already know what the answer will be. The answer will be 10 plus 20, and that is equal to 30. And that's what you will be able to see in a second. And here it is, right? Now, this is one way of initialization. Let me tell you guys another way in which we can initialize. So I had been talking about constructors since the beginning of a class. I told you guys how can we create a default constructor. So this is a default constructor, right? Let me write a comment as well. Constructor. This is the default constructor. Now, I had told you that we can initialize the variables in here. How can we initialize a variable? Simple. What I'll do is num1 is equal to 10 and I'll put num2 is equal to 20. Right? Now what will happen? See, the program execution starts from main function. So here program execution will start from line number 13. So this is the main function that it encounters, inside of which the first line of code is this one, line number 17. Like we have these three lines as well, but this won't be executed because these are inside comments, right? So in line number 17, we are creating an object. What will happen when we create an object? As we had discussed, as soon as the object is created, this constructor will be called automatically, right? This will be called automatically. So the value of num1 will be set to 10 and the value of num2 will be set to 20, right? Now we are done with line number 17. This part is evaluated. Next line which will get evaluated is line number 24, right? So here what will happen? We will initialize the value of sum with the addition of these two variables, right? And then we are printing that out. So if everything is working perfectly fine, if this initialization that we saw a few minutes ago and this initialization is one and same, we should be getting the same answer, right? We should be getting 30 as the answer. Now let me run this code and see if we are actually getting 30 as the answer or not. Right? See, previous value was 30. Let's run this code and see. So as you can see, the value of sum is 30. So what does that mean? In our case, this means that whatever we had discussed about constructors and a different way of initialization has worked perfectly fine, right? Okay, when you guys ask me to repeat something again, please make sure you specify which part do you want me to repeat, because otherwise it will be difficult to figure out, right? If you want me to repeat line number something, or if you want to repeat something about constructors, please do let me know that as well. Okay. Okay, is this clear, or is there anything you guys want me to clear? I mean, guys want me to explain further? Do let me know. Is it completely clear? No questions? Great. Okay, great. Okay, so another thing that I wanted to discuss was there is a difference between function and constructor, right? I told you that they are similar, but they are not same. And if they are not same, obviously there will be some differences, right? So what is the first difference that you can observe over here? The first difference that you can see over here is there's no return type, not even void. In functions, if we are not returning anything, we put a void as the keyword, right? But in here, you can see that there's no return type, no void, no return keyword, nothing as such, right? So this is one of the differences. No return type and no return keyword. That's what make it different from constructors. Hold on for a second, guys. Sorry about the interruption. Yeah. So what was one thing that we had discussed? That there is a difference between constructor and a function, right? What difference can you see from here is there's no return keyword, first of all, and there's no return type as well. Another thing that you can figure out is function can have any name as long as it is a legal identifier, right? As long as it is following the rules of an identifier. But the same thing does not apply to constructors. Why? It cannot have any name. Obviously, it should be a legal identifier, but it should not be. It cannot be any name. The name has to match the name of the class, right? Because if you don't match it with the name of the class, then it will be a function. It won't be a constructor anymore. And functions and constructors behave differently. For functions, you'll have to invoke them. You have to call them. For constructors, you don't have to call them separately. You just have to create an object, and that object creation will automatically trigger the invocation of the constructor, and thereby it will initialize the variables as well, right? Which constructor we use mostly, that depends on the usage. If I want every object to have the same variable, I'll be uh, using a default constructor, right? For other scenarios where we want the values of object to differ, I'll be using a parameterized constructor. Also, there's no copy constructor in here in Java. Yeah, so I hope this is clear. If this is clear, let us see what will happen if we create multiple objects. But if we use only one single constructor, that is a default constructor, will the value actually remain same or will they differ, right? So let me create one more object over here, and okay, constructor example, let's say I name it as constructor example 1, constructor example. And now what I'll do is I'll just copy paste this statement, obviously, and I'll change the value, change the name of the object. This is one, and this one is one as well, right? Now let's have the same print statement as well. Everything else will be same. The only thing that is different over here is the object name, right? And now if I run this code, let us see what the output is. See, as you can see, the first object gives an output of 30. This is the line, right? Constructor example dot sum. The second object gives an output of 30 as well. What will happen here? No matter how many objects we create, each of them will have the same values. I mean, variables inside each of them will have the same value, right? Why? Because we are using a default constructor where the values don't change, obviously, because we are keeping it fixed. We are keeping num1 set to 10, we are keeping num2 set to 20. So obviously the sum is going to be 30. It won't gonna change to 40 automatically, right? But there's a way to change it, and we'll discuss that in a while. Is this clear? Everything is clear until now? Yeah, is everything clear? Okay. So if that is clear, now let us move to the next constructor that we have. And the next type of constructor that we are going to discuss is parameterized constructor, right? Yeah. Okay. So coming to parameterized constructor, we have already seen how parameterized constructor looks like, right? Instead of these empty brackets that we have as of now, yeah, instead of these empty brackets that we have, these brackets will contain some values, right? Okay, so what next? Let's create a parameterized constructor. So what we will have to do is, first of all, we'll have to keep the name entirely same, right? Then we know that we have to initialize these two variables only. The third variable is dependent upon these two variables, right? So let's do something. Let's modify it a little bit. Let us not initialize sum over here. Instead of initializing it over here, can we not initialize it here itself? Can we write something like sum is equal to num1 plus num2? Yeah. See, it's giving an error, and that is because of a different reason. Yeah. So we can write sum is equal to num1 plus num2. Then we will not have to write this long statement over here. We can get rid of that. Let us get rid of that. Get rid of this statement as well, right? First of all, let me run this code and see if everything is working fine. If we are still getting the same answer, and yes, we are getting the same answer, right? Yeah. So this is done. Again, moving to parameterized constructor. So parameterized constructor is still a constructor, so it is going to follow the basic rules of the constructor, that its name should be same as class name. Now we actually have two variables to initialize. The third one will get initialized automatically, not automatically, obviously. Third one will get initialized based on the values of these two variables. So we actually have these two variables to take care of. If we can initialize these two, some will get initialized as well, right? So constructor example, what I'll do is I have to accept two values over here. I have to accept two values. So let me name it as n1 and n2, right? Now, the value that is being received in N1, let's say, has to be put in num1, and the value in N2 has to be put in num2. So here, this is what we will do. Yeah, getting it? Don't worry about how will we receive values over here. We'll discuss that in a while though, but don't worry about that as of now. Just try to understand that we are receiving two values here, N1 and N2, and whatever is being received in N1 is being put in num1. So how do we do that? By writing num1 is equal to N1, and that's how the value of N1 will go in num1, right? Similarly, whatever is being received in N2 will be put in num2, right? And how can we do that? By making num2 is equal to N2. That way we can take care of the initialization. Is this part clear? Don't worry about how are we going to receive values over here. We'll discuss that in a few minutes. But before that, let me know if the other parts are clear or not. Is it clear? Okay. So similarly, what are we going to do right now? We're going to initialize, we're going to initialize the values. 2 has been taken care of. We will then go for num1 plus num2, right? Sum is equal to num1 plus num2. Yeah. Now, coming to where are we going to receive these values from? See, from what we have discussed, constructors will be called as soon as we create an object. That means as soon as the object is created, the value has to pass, right? How can we go about that? Let me create one more constructor and let us name it as constructor example 2. Syntax will be similar, right? This time it won't be much different. Here, what we will do is we will pass the values. Let's say I pass 1 and 2, right? So this is how parameterized constructor will be invoked, right? Constructor example 2 is equal to new constructor example, and we are passing the values from here. So what will happen now? 1 and 2 is being passed, right? And this is the step, this is the statement where object is being created. So when we pass 1 comma 2 or 1 and 2 while creating an object, which one will it go to? It will get inside this particular block, right? Because this is the one matching. So one will be inside N1, or N1 will be initialized with 1 and N2 will be initialized with 2. And inside this particular block, we have three lines. First line initializes 1 to num1, second line initializes 2 to num2, and third line initializes sum with the addition of 1 and 2, right? So this way we can use a parameterized constructor as well, right? Is it understood? Is it clear? Well, we'll move on to packages. I think a few of you have questions, but let's not discuss that now. Let's discuss whatever we are currently on, right? Okay, so let me know if parameterized constructor is clear or not. If it is clear, very good. If it is not, I'll explain it once more. No problem. But let me know if it is not clear. Okay, so I got a few affirmative answers. Great. So if this is clear, let us run the code and see if we are getting the output expected. See if everything is fine. And if I just copy paste this and change the name of the object, right? So what is the output that we are expecting? This two will produce the same output, 30 and 30 each. This one should be producing 3 as the output, right? Because we have passed 1 and 2 and we have kept every other step same, right? It is still finding the sum of the two numbers. So it should be giving 3 as the answer. And let us see if it is correct or not, if we are getting that output or not. And yes, we are getting, right? So we got 3 as the output. Now, if I create another constructor, let's not spend time in writing the code. Let's just copy paste that, change the name, change the values. Let me make it 11 and 12 now, right? So the fourth line of output should be giving me 23 as the answer, right? And we have 23 as the answer. So remember the first discussion that we had, that if we have a default constructor, we will be getting the same output no matter how many objects are created, right? And that is why you can see that the first two output are same because they came from a default constructor. But the next two output were the result of parameterized constructor, and that is why they are different. That is dependent completely upon the values that we are passing, 1 to 11 to 12, right? I hope this is clear. Last step not clear. Can you tell me the line number? Ajay, go ahead, please ask what question you have. Seema, you said last step is not clear. Please tell me the line number. I'll explain that again. And if everything is clear, what we'll do next is we'll summarize once whatever we have discussed today, and then we'll write a code where we will involve object creation and constructors and all of that. A small question, small code, easy question that is. Okay, I don't see any questions. Shall I proceed from 36? Fine. Let's go back to the code. Line number 36, right? Okay, so line number 36 onward is the code for invoking parameterized constructor. Tell me something. Line number 14 to 18 is completely understood. Yes? Line number 14 to 18 completely clear. Yes? If that is clear, you are halfway through. Okay, then let's focus on line number 36. So what line number 36 is doing? Line number 36 actually is a comment. Let's ignore that. Line number 37. Line number 37 is creating a object, right? Now, this object creation is going to trigger something else. What is it going to trigger? The parameterized constructor, right? The initialization with the help of the parameterized constructor. How can we show sure about that? Because we are passing two values, 1 and 2. Now, if we are passing two values from here, then one thing is for sure is that there's a parameterized constructor existing in this program, right? And it is line number 14 to 18. So what will happen? You create an object, you pass 1 comma 2, right? These two get stored here in n1 and n2 respectively. So the value n1 is equal to 1 for the first constructor, and the value n2 is equal to 2, right, for the constructor on line number 38. Now n1 is equal to 1, n2 is equal to 2. Then what happened? We initialize the values to num1 and num2 respectively and found out the sum, and then printed out the value of sum. That's what we did. Similar was the case with line number 41 and 42. It's just that we passed a different set of values. Instead of 1 and 2, we passed 11 and 12, right? Is it understood now? Ajay, yes, we can use this keyword in parameterized constructor, obviously. But since we have not discussed anything about that particular keyword, I did not tell you how to do it. But yes, we can. What will happen if duplicate constructor is defined? By duplicate constructor, I understand that you're talking about a constructor with same number of parameters. Let's see what happens then, right? See, if I declare one more default constructor, let me copy paste it, just copy paste it, right? We'll see what happens. And as expected, it will throw an error. Now, to understand why an error is thrown, let's understand it this way. Let's say I tell you to answer me this question: which of these constructors will get called when we create an object? Will this constructor be called, or will this constructor be called when I create this object, the one with default parameter? Will you be able to answer? I mean, it can call anyone, right? It is going to create confusion as to which one will get called. The same will be the case with Java as well, and that's why it is throwing an error. See, this is a constructor, this is another constructor, right? But there's a difference. It is receiving 0 arguments. It is receiving 2 arguments, fine? So there can exist as many constructors as you want. It's just that the number of arguments should differ. If you create a constructor with 1 argument, even that is fine. Like, let's say I do something like this, and I put only 1 argument, int n, right? And then what I do is say num1 is equal to n, and even num2 is equal to n, and then sum is equal to num1 plus num2. So to invoke this constructor, I'll have to create an object. So let us create an object, and inside the object, first of all, we'll have to name it differently, and inside the object we have to pass only 1 argument, right? Then the particular constructor with 1 argument will be invoked, right? So if I run this code now, the last statement will give me 200 as the answer. Why? Because what did we do was we created a constructor, sorry, we created an object and passed one value. So that particular constructor creation, object creation will invoke this constructor, and both num1 and num2 will be set to same value n, which is 100. So we will be getting 200 as the answer. So let's run this code and see. Okay, right? You can see sum is 200, right? So you can have as many constructors as you want. It's just that the number of arguments should be different. 0 argument, 1 argument, 2 argument, all in the same code, same program, and it's working perfectly fine. If you duplicate it, in the sense if you create the exact same copy, It's not gonna work, obviously. Am I clear? Yeah, this is totally understood. Yes, name and number of parameters. Correct. Okay, so if this is clear, let us jump to whiteboard and uh, discuss, I mean, summarize whatever we have discussed. Then we'll write, we will solve a simple question. We'll write a small program involving all the concepts, right? So I'm stopping the screen sharing. I mean, I'll be sharing the screen, but I'm stopping this intelligent screen sharing. So share screen. Yeah, so I hope the whiteboard is visible. So let us summarize. What did we start off with? We started off with constructors, obviously. So we discussed what is the use of constructors, right? It is used to initialize the variables. Now, what are the types of constructors? Two actually. One is default, another one is parameterized, right? In default constructor, what happens? What is the difference in here? In default constructors, we don't pass any argument. So zero arguments. I'm writing it in short as zero args. And in here, we pass at least one argument. At least one argument, right? Also, there are a few similarities between constructors and functions, and there are a few differences as well. So if we talk about a function and if we talk about a constructor, what are the similarities? That they both receive arguments. I mean, they both may receive an argument, may not receive an argument, but they both are capable of receiving an argument, and both will work fine even without arguments. What are the differences? Function can have any name, right? But the name of constructor has to match the name of class. Okay, function may have a return type, constructor cannot have a return type. There's a difference. May have, you may have the return type, you may not have a return type, but constructor strictly cannot have a return type, right? Not even void. Function may have a return keyword depending upon the return type. Constructor cannot have a return keyword, right? I gave n 100. No, no, that n that you see is because of IntelliJ. I mean, I did not write n colon 100. I just wrote 100. The IntelliJ made it as n 100, just indicating that the value we are passing is going to get stored inside n, right? You can directly pass 100. Obviously, that's what I did. Yeah. So we saw the differences in constructors and functions. We saw what are the types of constructors. We saw the meaning of both of them. We saw and we discussed what is the use of constructors, right? And I hope you guys have no questions. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask. I'll be very happy to answer them. Go ahead. Let's take a couple of minutes, 2 minutes, and you may ask any questions that you have. No questions? Function must have return type. See, function may have void as return type, or function may have any other return type. Yes, we create constructor for which data types. You can create for any data types. As of now, we had two integers, right? So what did I do was created a constructor which is accepting two integers. If I change it, if I keep a float and an integer, or maybe two float or float and double, any combination or any number of parameters, I'll have to create constructors accordingly, right? And what is return type? Return type specifies what is the function going to return. If the function is going to return a value. Now let us say I assign you a task. I tell you that I'm going to give two numbers to you and your job is to add them and return the number to me, right? So if I give you an integer number and a float number, you'll add them, you'll give back the number to me, right? Let's say I give you two integer numbers, 10 and 10. You'll add both of them. The answer will be 20. You return the value to me. I got 20 as the answer. What was the type of that particular value? That particular value's type was integer. So that is the return type. The type of the variable a function is going to return, or the type of the value a function is going to return. It can be integer, it can be float, double, string, character, maybe boolean, maybe array, maybe an object, maybe a linked list, anything, right? Is it clear? Okay, so now let's do something. What I'll do is I'll create another class. Let's name it shapes. What I'll do is I'll write a code which will find area of different shapes, right? So this will involve concepts like constructors, static keywords, and all of that. Okay, right. So with shapes, what do we need? We need dimensions, right? So we will need dimension. Let's say I want to find area of a square. So what I'll need is one single dimension. Let's say I need to find area of a rectangle. Then I'll need two dimensions, the length and the width. I need to find area of a triangle. So the maximum I need is three dimensions, and so on, right? Let us take for these three only. What I'll do here is, since we know that we are going to need a maximum of three dimensions according to our requirement. Say length, okay, let's make it length 1, length 2, and length 3, right? And this is a non-static variable. These say a non-static variable. Let's have a value, uh, let's have a float value for finding the area, and let us make it as a static variable, right? Why did I keep it as a float value? Because the area can be in float depending upon the area, depending on the shape that we are finding out, right? Now, why did I keep it as static? Because I don't think there's a requirement to create different objects. It can accommodate all of them. This is just for educational purpose, by the way. You can go for static length 1, static length 2, and static length 3 as well. So what I'll do here is, first of all, I'll have a main function. Now, what I'll do, I'll create an object of shapes, and let's take square first of all. Shape square is equal to new shapes, right? And what do we know about square is that if we have one side, we can very well find the area of that. So let's take a constructor with only one argument. Let's say L, right? And what are we going to do over here is we are going to just initialize the first variable with L, because that would be that will work fine. we don't need to initialize length 2 and length 3, right? And I'll pass 10 from here. Then how will I find the area? And since area is a static variable, I don't need to create an object. I can just straight away go for area is equal to square dot length 1 into square dot length 1. Okay, right. And I'll print this out, or let me print it out this way: area of square plus area, right? So is this understood? There's a few concepts mixed: non-static, static, and a constructor as well, right? Okay, can you not see the screen? Really sorry about that. Let me share it once again. Okay, what I'll do is I'll erase everything. I'll start from first. Okay. Yeah, is it visible now? You should be seeing IntelliJ screen. Visible now? Okay. So what are we gonna do is we will create a class and we will name it as shapes, or maybe name it as shape only, right? Now what will we do over here is we'll find shape of three different types of geometric figures. We'll take square, we'll take rectangle, and we'll take a triangle. So the maximum number of dimensions that we will need is 3. So I'll take 3 variables for that, and let's make them non-static, right? And let's have a variable for finding the area. So that will be a float variable, right? So first of all, I'll be having a main function. Inside of main function, what I'll do is I'll create an object of shape and will name it as square, right? And about square, what do we know is we just need one dimension, one side to find the area, and let's initialize it with 10, right? So shape int say L, what I'll do is I'll initialize the first variable over here with L, right? Then to find the area, and since it is a static variable, I don't need an object. To find the area, I can straight away go for square dot length 1 multiplied with square dot length 1. And if I print this area of square, I should be getting 100 as the answer, right? Actually 100.0 because it's float. Yeah, so if you can see, area of square is 100, right? Okay, so let's take another one. What we will do here is we will take area for a rectangle. Shape, let's name the object as rectangle is equal to new shape. And let's pass 12 comma 13, right? Because we know that we need length of two sides to find the area of a rectangle. Shape int say L and int B. What I'll do over here, initialize the first variable with L, the the second variable with B. And find the area. What are we going to do? Rectangle dot length 1 multiplied with the length 2. What will be the answer over here? 12 into 13 gives us 156. Area of rectangle is area, right? And let me run this code now. So the second one should be giving 156.0, right? Yeah. I hope these two parts are clear. So for the third one, let's go for finding the length of, sorry, the area of a triangle. Okay, and we have to pass three variables. So let's pass probably 21, maybe 14, and say 26, right? So if we are passing three variables, we need a constructor which can accept three variables. Shape, int L1, int L2, and int L3. So length 1 will be set to L1, length 2 to L2, length 3 to L3. Now the calculation, you already know what the formula is to find the area of a triangle, right? So this is what the formula will be. So it will be under root of, or say root of s into s minus a. You might have studied this formula. S, is this correct? Yeah. Now, what can we do is we will be using the inbuilt function that we have, right? We can find the value of s, not a problem. But what we'll be doing here is we'll be using the inbuilt function to find the square root, right? So, okay, so let's first find the value of s. We know what the value of s will be. So let's declare a variable s, and this is, sorry, okay, this should be a float variable actually, equal to triangle dot length 1 plus triangle dot length 2 triangle dot length 3 whole divided by 2, right? This will give us the value of s. Now what do we need is the value of area. So it actually is equal to the value s multiplied with s minus a. Now what is a over here? The first side. Triangle dot length 1 s into s minus a into s minus b, and uh, that multiplied with the third one, right? All of this is fine, but we are missing one component over here. We have to find the root of all this. So for that, what I'll do is I'll use the inbuilt function that we have, and that is math.sqrt, right? Okay, so let's make it double, by the way. Let's not keep it as float. We have to use math.sqrt to find the square root, right? And now if I print the area of triangle plus area, I don't know what the answer will be, but it will be correct, obviously. So it is 131 point something something. You can use a calculator and you can figure that out whether it is correct or not, right? But this is not the main point over here to discuss. The main point over here to discuss was whether we was how can we use the concepts that we have seen. Right? Okay, so I hope this is understood. This is completely clear. If we write directly 21, 14, and 26 in float in place of triangle dot length, yeah, that will work fine, obviously. But my motive was to explain the usage of constructors. So that's why I did not do that way. You can obviously do that. You can just create an object, or maybe without creating an object. See, all of this can be done in one single function. We don't need such a lengthy program for this. My main objective here was to explain constructors and the usage of that. And that's why I went in a longer way, right? I can write a small program inside only the main function, which will give you the same output. We don't need to create objects. We don't need to have static, non-static variables over here. We don't need constructors as well. We can do it without all of this, right? So I hope all of this is clear. If there's any questions, you may ask. Triangle concept, that's a formula that we use to find the area of a triangle. We call it as Heron's formula, right? Was a concept in class 9 mathematics. Semi-perimeter multiplied with s minus a, s minus b, s minus c. That's all. And under root of everything, square root of everything. Okay, anything else that you need to ask? Any questions? Okay, why did I change float to double? Good question. I was expecting one of you to ask this. See, I initially had float, right? Thinking that no matter what the value I provide, float is enough to store the answer. But the concept here, see, what we have done here is we have used a sqrt function. If you go to the function, I mean the definition of the function, you can see that it is returning a double type. It is returning a value which is of double data type, right? And that is why to accommodate that I had to change the data type from float to double. Got it? If I don't change float to double, I'll have to do typecasting. And since we have not discussed anything about typecasting, I did not go for typecasting. I just changed the type only, right? Understood now? Okay, let me ask you one question, one simple question. See, here we have a few constructors, right? What if I make this constructor as static? I mean, this is non-static. How can we figure that out? Because the static keyword is missing from each one of them. But what if I make it static? What will happen then? Will it be allowed? What will be the problems? Or if we cannot do that, why can we not do that? Can we make a constructor as static? Is my question. If yes, then why? If no, then why not? Okay, if yes, then why does not make sense? But if no, if we cannot make it as static, why not? What will be the problem if we make it static? Any answers? See, what did we discuss about the static members and non-static members? We discussed that static members are part of the class. They're not dependent upon object. They're not part of the object. They are independent of the object, right? What about non-static members? Non-static members are dependent upon the object, are part of the object. So we read about constructors that they are invoked when object is called. But if there was a way to make the constructor static, will it be dependent on the constructor? Will it be dependent upon the object creation? No, right? So there's a mismatch of the concepts in here. Constructor is invoked while the object is created. But if I make it static, it won't be dependent upon the object anymore. Like we can't make any constructor as static. I mean, it's of no use, right? The constructor invocation happens when the object is created. But if I make it as static, if I put a static keyword over here, it's gonna throw an error obviously because it is not allowed. But why it is not allowed? Because it will no longer be part of the object, right? It will no longer be part of the object because static members are not part of the object. They are independent of the objects, right? That's why we cannot make it static. It's not allowed. It will throw an error obviously. Is this understood? Yeah. So, right. So this marks the end of the class. And there's no other concept to discuss. So if you want, again, as I had announced yesterday, there are full-time programs with ranging multiple hours and multiple projects. If you want to enroll and be on the path to learn development, industry-related development, industry-oriented programs, you can check out at the website, and the link you can find in chat as well. It's being sent by our team. Right. So if you have any questions, you may ask. I'll be answering each of them. And if there's no questions, we can wrap it up now. Thanks a lot. Means a lot for me, really. Okay, so since I don't see any questions, I assume that it's clear. If it is not, you may still ask in the comments and we'll be answering them. Okay, anyway, so ending the session as of now. It was really great teaching you guys the interaction and it made it much more enjoyable. Let us end this session as of now. Take care, everyone. Good night.